This is a production from the Takedown Sports. What's up, y'all? T Brown 31 here, along with Jaboc the Great. This is another episode of The Last Word. We got a bunch of topics to hit today, so what's coming up?
Yeah, we'll be recapping the NBA playoff games that have taken place so far, giving predictions on Thursday and Friday's game matchups, and looking ahead to next week.
Hey, that sounds great. But unfortunately, the first thing we got to talk about is issues with the fans from last night.
Yeah. So, for those of you who may not know what happened, uh, for the Sixers and Wizards, Russell Westbrook was injured. He was on his way into the locker room and had a fan toss popcorn on him. And then sometime during the course of the Knicks versus the Hawks, a Knicks fan spit on or spat on Trey Young, looked like on the back of his neck or something. And these kind of things are just disgusting and unacceptable. Maybe having popcorn thrown on you isn't as like literally disgusting, but it is still a disgusting concept to be doing as an NBA fan.
Yeah, so I'll hit Russ first because that seemed to be the one that got the most attention. Obviously, getting spat on is more disgusting, like you said. But the Trey Young thing was kind of like we're not sure if he actually got spat on yet or not, whether it was going for him, whatever. So we'll just hit Russ first. Um, as far as the Russ thing goes, it seems like people go out of their way to just try to piss Russ off at this point. Yeah, Russ can have a little bit of abrasive personality, but there's no excuse for this man constantly being challenged by fans over and over and over. We've seen guys curse at him. Think guys like threw racial slurs at him. I'm pretty sure in Utah, um, a Philly fan not too long ago, double middle fingers in his face. Now that's more just stupid. But point is, I don't know why fans keep trying this, man. And eventually, one of these days, he's going to break free, and the fans going to get a whooping, and the league office is going to have to suspend him. But I wouldn't even be mad because I mean, yeah, it's just popcorn, right? But it's not about the fact that it's just popcorn and it's harmless. It's the principle of it. You should not be throwing food on the athlete, period. Like Russ said, if you saw him in the street just out there, you wouldn't walk up to him and throw popcorn in his face because he would probably kill you, right? It's just overall respect as a grown man, besides the athlete thing, besides being a fan, he's playing against your team. Forget all that. As a grown man, you got to have enough respect for another grown man to not do that. It's really as simple as that. And I can't understand why some people are still just like, oh, Russ is over emotional. He's doing too much. It's just popcorn. I would challenge you to just be walking and somebody throw something on you, whether it be something small like popcorn, and see how you react. Um, you're in the heat of competition. It's going to be even more of a quote unquote overreaction, right? So I think it's just stupid all around for fans to continuously do stuff like this, especially the guy like Russ.
Yeah, I mean, Russ goes through so much stuff from fans for no reason. It's almost like they want him to be the NBA villain, so they have to like push him. And let's also talk about the fact that the Wizards were down by like a lot. Russ had just gotten injured. So like what reason, what has he done to you to make you angry enough to throw your popcorn at him? Your team is up by a whole lot. This guy is hurt. He's just trying to leave. Like there's no reason in general, even if he was like blowing you out, for you to throw something on him. But adding the fact that you guys are destroying his team, he's hurt. What makes you think I should throw popcorn on this guy? And then, as Terrence said, just think of it as being you're a grown man to another grown man. You're not going to walk up to him and just toss popcorn on him. It's like what goes through your mind to make you think that it's okay? Is it being in this game? Do you think that that environment like gives you the freedom to do something? I don't understand fans and why they do things like that. It's a stupid situation all around. And thankfully, that fan was banned by the Sixers from their stadium. And if that's what it takes, that's what it takes. You don't need to be doing something that stupid. and stupid actions bring you the appropriate consequence.
Yeah, I mean, the fan got what he deserved, and overall, it goes back to saying, it's just popcorn, and that makes me think it is just popcorn. It's like, what in the world makes you think? Like, let me just toss popcorn on a dude. Like, that's gonna piss him off, right? Like, that's just incredibly juvenile. Like, that's some sixth grade stuff, man. I mean, throwing food at people, you're grown. You're too old to be doing stuff like that, especially in public. And like you said, I don't know what it is that the fans just get to the arena and think, all right, we can do whatever we want. Max Kellerman on First Take earlier, he said it pretty well. The laws of civility still apply in the arena. And that's perfect. It's like you don't get into the arena and all of a sudden you can do whatever you want. The laws don't apply to you anymore. No, you still need to act like a decent human being, regardless. Talk your trash if you want, and I'm pretty sure Russ will welcome that. But throwing stuff is where there's got to be a line drawn.
Yeah, I agree. Trash talk is fine. It's a sports game. You're in the arena. Everything was heated. Everyone's gonna do a little bit of trash talk, and that's kind of like a part of the culture. Do that. Don't throw something. That's not a part of the culture. That's not fun. That's not adding to the fun environment. It's taking something too far. That's all it is.
Yeah. So switching over to Trey Young, supposedly a New York, well, we know now for sure, a New York Knicks fan, excuse me, um, spat in the direction of Trey Young. Wasn't really sure if it was got on him or not, but he definitely spat in his direction. And we saw a lady in the video right in front of him actually like flinch or move. So definitely something landed. Uh, the spitting is worse, but I don't think it got as much attention because it's Russ. He's been in stuff with the fans a lot. Trey Young hasn't. Now Trey Young's been talking a lot of trash to the New York fans, but once again, trash talk, spitting, throwing stuff, line drawing.
Yeah, it's I think another one of the things that got the attention was that Russ kind of tried to get at the fan, and Trey, I think he noticed, but he didn't turn around and try to put a whooping on the fan. Which, although the fan deserved it, he didn't, and so that it takes a little bit. It doesn't catch the eye as much, I guess you could say.
Yeah, and I think overall Trey is more generally calm than Russ is, but I don't know if I can be a spin on and just like if I felt it, if I got spat on, and I felt it. I'm gonna have to turn around and at least talk to you. Like, yo, like what is your problem? Like, we're grown men here. Because that is, as far as I'm concerned, that's the most disrespectful thing you can do to another man, just straight up. You know, not no fighting, anything like that. Like you just spit on a man. That's just a huge sign of disrespect.
Yeah, and like you said, if I feel it, I'm not gonna just stand there calmly. Or like you, that's like the respectful thing that I can think of that you can like do without just hitting someone. Like spitting, that's putting your like saliva on someone. That's disgusting, and that is super, super, super disrespectful. It just shouldn't be something that a human being should think. Yeah, I should do that.
Yeah, I mean, I saw some people say possibly the guy was just yelling and spit came out, but eh, the way it looked, like it didn't look like that. And like you shouldn't really be pulling your mask down and doing that anyway, especially when the guy's standing right there. So, I mean, that's just stupid anyway.
Yeah, pulling the mask down is what makes it seem a little more malicious as well. Like, what reason and do you have in that stadium to pull it down just to do something like that? So it makes it wasn't a oopsie. It came out of my mouth while talking. It seems like it was he spat at him. So
Yeah. So likewise with the Russ situation, they got that fan up out of there after the fact, and he can't come back into those games either. So justice was pretty swift here. I was thinking maybe this is gonna be another situation back with Kyle Lowry a few years ago. It's like, okay, we don't they're gonna take a little bit of time to do stuff and they're gonna be debating about it, blah, blah, blah. Like, nah, they immediately said, no, we're not playing that. You're done.
yeah, it's good to see the NBA or at least the individual teams kind of crack down that quickly because you like to see justice served for that kind of situation. So to have these two teams within 24 hours both get those fans up out of there permanently, it's a good swift justice.
Yeah. And we didn't mention this earlier, but now that I've thought about it, we did have Kyrie Irving uh, prior to his matchup with the Celtics. He's obviously returning to Boston. to play in the playoffs, mentioning, we hopefully the fans can keep calm up there, yada yada yada. And that's not even something I really thought about. So I think now that these two incidents have happened, I think the Boston fans will be completely chill as far as anything disrespectful. Um, they'll probably be saying, like "F you, Kyrie," and "You suck, Kyrie," blah blah blah. But I think now the fans are kind of on notice as far as don't do anything stupid.
Yeah, I expect some change and some stuff like that, like Adam. But I don't think anybody will do anything extreme now because they know that the league is watching and they will punish you quickly.
Yep, as they should. All right, y'all. So now we can actually get to some on the court action here. So we'll be recapping the 8 Western Conference playoff games that have taken place so far. We'll be running through these pretty quick because we do have a bit of a longer show. So first up, we had Utah and Memphis. So the Memphis Grizzlies in game 1 put out a 112-109 victory against the Utah Jazz. This is behind Dylan Brooks' 31 points and Ja Morant's 26 points. But then in the next game, the Jazz weren't playing around. They came out with 141, downing the Memphis Grizzlies with their 129. And they had an amazing effort overall. All but 2 of their players scored in the double digits.
So for game one with this series, the Grizzlies definitely came out and pulled off a shocker. The first seed, and last year we saw the same thing where both 8 seeds beat the number 1 seed in the first game, and then got what we call the gentleman sweep, uh, which I kind of think that maybe what would be happening in the series. But uh, for this first game, it was great. I mean, Dylan Brooks came out; he looked like a seasoned playoff veteran. Like he'd been to the finals like 5 times or something.
Yeah.
He's all confidence, shooting like there was no one around him defending him. It was crazy. And I mean, the important note for this game one was that Donovan Mitchell was out, but that didn't stop the confidence of Ja and or Dylan Brooks. And then for game two, Ja went crazy. He almost scored 50. It just wasn't enough. As Donovan came back, he dropped 20 something, and Rudy Gobert had, like Terrence said, most of their roster put up double digits for points, and it was just a really great effort by the Grizzlies. But Jazz came out just a little better, and with the defense of Rudy Gobert and the offense of Donovan Mitchell, it's a hard duo to stop.
Yeah, right there. So moving on to the Dallas Mavericks and the Clippers. The Mavs won both of these first 2 games in LA. So game 1, the Mavs won 113-103, with Luka putting up a triple double of 31, 10, and 11. And then in game 2, they won 127-121. Luka again went completely crazy, 39 points. Tim Hardaway Jr. also 28 points for the Mavericks getting the win, despite Kawhi Leonard putting up 41.
Yeah, I mean, this series I had it as Clippers in 6 or 7, which is still possible, but the Mavericks are kind of starting to make me regret that. To pull off both these upset wins in LA's house is a huge thing. I mean, they came out and they showed them who's boss in both these games. Like the first game, there was some rocky shooting by Paul George and Kawhi, and some mistakes here and there that you could say, okay, we can do better next game. But honestly, for game two, the Clippers played an amazing game. I mean, they shot well. They each of their stars showed up. They defended the best they could. It just wasn't enough to stop the Mavericks, and that's what makes me think that the Mavericks may be pulling away with the series here, as the Clippers did their best and still came up 6 points short on game two, and lost by 10 in game one at home.
Yeah, I mean, they have to stop Luka. If they don't stop Luka, they are going to lose. And I know he's their best player, obviously, so he's going to go off every night, but you have to at least try to contain him. And the Clippers, basically players 3 through 12, they got to show up, man. It's like they have to contribute. I mean, if you got Kawhi Leonard putting up 41 points, Paul George had a good game stat wise, and he didn't shoot very well. But like, y'all got to show up, man, because you can't just be on the 2 best players. So moving over to Portland and Denver. Game 1, Portland upset Denver 123-109 behind Dame's 34 points. But game 2 is almost flipped. Denver won 128-109 and Jokic put up 38 points along with 8 rebounds and 5 assists.
Yeah, so I called this series as pretty much Nuggets in five. I think that's what's going to happen here. The Blazers came out on fire like they do. Dame got the best of the Nuggets, surprised them, popped off the way Dame does in the playoffs, and took game one. I mean, 123 to 109 is a big victory. But then when some game came, I mean, the Nuggets just from start to finish. There were a few times when Dame would get hot and seemed like he was going to pull the game back, but for the most part, the Nuggets just held on to that huge lead the whole time. And I mean, Jokic was going good. In the first game, they held Jokic to one assist, which is a big part of their offense. But in the second game, Jokic had 5 assists, and I mean, he got the offense moving around him. Everybody was able to get where they needed to be, score when they needed. People didn't miss, easy shots, and they came out with a big victory. And I think the Nuggets are back on track for this series.
Yeah, I mean, I had a feeling that Portland would steal one of the first 2 games. I didn't think they would win the series, but I do think stealing one of the first 2 games would help them a lot. Now we'll see what happens game 3 and beyond. So, moving over to the last Western Conference matchup, we had the Lakers going up against the Phoenix Suns. And game 1, Phoenix Suns won 99-90 behind Devin Booker's 34 and DeAndre Ayton putting up 21 points and 16 rebounds. Now, in game 2, however, the Lakers came back and won 109-102. Anthony Davis putting up 34, Dennis the Menace with 24, and LeBron with 23.
Yeah, so in that first game, I saw Max Kellerman say this, and I agree with him. AD allowed DeAndre Ayton to feel like he was a playoff veteran, right? Like AD was in that first game was kind of supposed to tell Aiden, okay, you had your fun, but welcome to the big league. This is the playoffs. But Aiden went off in the first game, and he did really good in the second game too. So you got to deal with that. Now the Lakers should pull out the series. I didn't think they'd be a sweep. I didn't think they'd drop game one, but game one, AD just had a bit of a rocky start. Not everybody could get going, but as Terrence said, I mean, 24 for Dennis, 34 for AD, 23 for LeBron. The Lakers found their groove in game two, and it's going to be a tough series. It's really gritty. We've had already some on court, shuffles and stuff going on. So it's going to be a hard series, and it's definitely a fun one to watch. I think the Lakers will take it, but the Suns aren't going to make it easy.
Yeah, I mean, having Chris Paul at full strength probably would have helped a lot. Because in game 1, once Chris Paul came back like that second time and we just saw him, I mean, his shots were just, they were kind of ugly. And a lot of Chris Paul's game is just being that pure point guard. And if he can't do a lot with that shoulder, it's pretty much all on Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton. Campaign was playing great, but it's just not going to be enough to beat the Lakers. So I think the Lakers
Yeah.
will take it. So moving on to the east side of things, we're going to start off with the Atlanta Hawks and the New York Knicks. So game 1, the Hawks won by 2 points, 107-105. Trae Young, 32 points, 7 rebounds, and 10 assists. But game 2, the Knicks came back 101-92, and they had an overall good output from most of their team, but they were led by Derrick Rose with 26 points.
Yeah, so this series is going to be chippy. These two teams are going back and forth with each other. You got the Knicks fans firing up the Hawks and getting everybody kind of agitated, especially Trae Young. He loves the trash talk in the Garden and is definitely feeding off it. That first game was back and forth the whole time. Came up on a Trae Young game-winning floater to win 107-105. Second game also went back and forth a lot. The Hawks led here, the Knicks led here, but towards the end, the Knicks started to pull ahead with it, and they caught up back, won by 9. And at the end of the game, you could see Trae Young mouthing, "We'll see you in the A," as the series is now headed to Atlanta for its next game. But these two games were great. I mean, two fiery teams that really want to prove something, especially the Knicks, considering their playoff drought. And I mean, it's going to be a fun series. I thought this one would maybe be over in 5 or 6, more so 5, but I think it could go longer now. I think how up the Hawks actually are.
Yeah, I think it could go 7. I mean, I would want to go 7 because it's just a fun series to watch. I think this is probably the most interesting series for me, aside from the Clippers and Mavs, because that one is just kind of weird. But yeah, having Knicks basketball in May and it actually means something now. Like it's crazy. So along with the Hawks because they haven't been good in a while either. So just the overall great atmosphere there. So moving on to another matchup, we got the Bucks and the Miami Heat rematch of last year. Um, I don't think it's gonna go the same way though. Game one, the Bucks won 109 to 107 in overtime. Chris Middleton had the game winner. Also put up 27 points. Giannis 26 and 18 for him. And in game two, the Bucks just murdered the Heat 132 to 98 behind Giannis, 31 points and 13 rebounds.
Yeah, I mean, there's a huge difference between game one and game two. Game one felt like last year's series against the Heat. These teams going back and forth. A few games of last year's series. There were games last year where the Heat just sent the Bucks into oblivion. But this one, it was back and forth, back and forth. It ends up in overtime, and then the Bucks bring it back. It's tied. Everything's tied up, and then Chris Middleton hits a nice game winner. Take a tough, gritty 109-107 win. But the second game, in the first quarter, it finished 46 to 20. That would block you up, and it was because the Bucks were on fire from three. I mean, Bryn Forbes, he put up 19 in the first half. I think he had 14 in the first quarter. He didn't miss a three in the first quarter. And a lot of the other Bucks players are just on fire from three, and that added a lot to it. And it comes to a point for the Heat, you can't defend a team that's just shooting threes like that, but you've got to put up points of your own to try to stay in the race. And they just weren't able to keep up with the Bucks offensively, and that ended up bringing them to a huge loss of 98 to 132, with the Bucks up 2-0 in the series, which I didn't expect. I figured we'd be 1-1 at this point. So it's nice to see, but I wonder how this series will continue.
Yeah, I mean, it could have easily been 1-1 had the Heat won that first game. They just completely got destroyed in game two. They have to turn it around in Miami because obviously if they don't, they're out. But they got. I feel like they have to win game three to kind of get things back on track because if you're going to game four, you're down 3-0. Your backs are against the wall, but it's just the Bucks are probably going to come out trying to kill you and be done with the series so they can get a little bit of rest. So we'll have to see from there. Next up, we got the Goon Squad with the Brooklyn Nets and the Boston Celtics. So game one, Brooklyn Nets 104, Boston 93. KD with 32, Kyrie with 29, and James Harden with 21. And then game two, they killed Boston 130 to 108. KD 26, Joe Harris put up 25, and then Kyrie and James Harden combined for 35. This is scary, just to say the least.
Yeah, so this series, I mean, you got Jaylen Brown out, which pretty much sends the Celtics that you got to play at your best every single game, both offensively and defensively. And now in the first game, of course, 90-4, it seems like it could be a big loss, but it's really not that big, especially considering what the teams are. So there's hope for the Celtics here. But in game two, I mean, they held Kyrie to 15. You can say they held James Harden to 20. But then Joe Harris comes out for 25. KD so gets 26. And at some point in that game, Jason ended up getting poked in the eye and didn't come back. Now Kemba Walker, I mean, he put up 17 and 7, and you had Marcus Smart with 19 and 6. It looks like they tried, but it's just they're going up against the Monstars or the Goon Squad, as Terrence said, and the Nets will probably pull a sweep off of this series. I mean, the Celtics they're just outmatched.
Yeah, this is what we said before the series started. If all three of them are playing, they're all healthy and they're all playing at full strength, it's going to be a wash. I mean, you just cannot handle KD, Kyrie, and James Harden. And the fact that in game two, Kyrie put up 15 points and they still went crazy because you had KD scoring 26, James Harden putting up 20, and then Joe Harris. You wouldn't expect Joe Harris to be the second leading scorer on the team. And, this with these three guys. So, good effort by the Celtics, but they're going home pretty soon. And then our last matchup on the east side of things, we got Philly and Washington. Safe to say these two teams are not best friends, as we've seen so far. So game one, 125 to 118. Philly gets the win. Tobias Harris, 37 points in 37 minutes. Joel Embiid, 30 points in 30 minutes. They led the way there. And then in game two, another wash. Obviously, Russ went out with an injury. 120-95. Philly won that. Tobias Harris with 19. And then Embiid and Ben Simmons both put up 22.
Yeah, this is another series that's probably going to be a sweep. I mean, the Wizards may steal one and make it 5, but considering how both these first games are going, it doesn't look like the possibility of stealing one is very high for the Wizards. I mean, in game one, you have Embiid drop 30. You hold Ben Simmons to 6, but then Tobias Harris gets 37, and Seth Curry gets 15. So you stop one guy, another one fires up. Then in game two, you've got Harris with 19. Their two main guys at 22 each, and then you have Furkan Korkmaz put up 13, and Tyrese Maxey put up 10. So it gets to a point where, like, okay, we stop the big guys, and then the little guys fire up. It's just, once again, it's an outmatched series. You've got a team with two really good guys, and then kind of no one else versus a really well-rounded team, and it's most likely going to end in a sweep 5 at the most.
Yeah, I mean, Philly's the number one seed for a reason. Washington, good effort, like Bradley Beal and Russ willed them into the playoffs, but it's just not going to happen. Like you said, they stop one guy, they stop two guys, and two other guys show up. It's kind of like what Brooklyn has done to a smaller extent, of course. They don't have a big three like Brooklyn does, but it's the same concept. You stop one guy, these other guys show up, and it's just the point of being overwhelmed. So, yeah, there you go. So we're moving on to tonight's game, that being Thursday, the 27th. So first up, we're not going in the order of the games that they're being played. We want to talk about Milwaukee and Miami last because that's happening right now. So first up, Denver and Portland. What are your predictions for that game?
Say that Denver comes out, even though they're going to be in Portland. I think they come out with the win here. Bring this series up to 2-1, maybe in a 5 to 10 point victory. I think it'll be close, especially with them being in Portland. But I do think this one, and put the series really in their hands, because I said earlier that the series is in their hands now when they tied it, but truly it's tied. So now I think tonight they will put the series firmly in their own hands.
Yeah, I don't think Denver's going to kill Portland or anything, but maybe like 10 points or so, something like that. Jokic is just going to be too much for him. I think he has another great game. I see him putting up 35, bunch of assists, bunch of rebounds. Dame's probably going to put up like 35 or 40 or something. CJ probably put up another 20 with him, but I just don't think it'll be enough to beat them. So, yeah, I'll agree with you there. Denver by about, 6 to 10.
All right, and then as we move to the Suns versus the Lakers, what are you expecting from that?
So I expect another, amazing performance from AD. I think, getting called a Disney on Twitter. I don't know if Anthony Davis reads Twitter all night, seeing what people are saying about him. But I think having them, they didn't get beat down, but they got beat up in that first game. And they just didn't play well at all. Game two, they came back. That was a prove-it game saying, hey, we're not going to go down like that. Game three, I think they continue that momentum. LeBron's going to have a great game. AD's going to have a great game. Drummond, I think he'll be great. Drummond has to not get like all the blame whenever they lose. I understand that they don't want to have AD play the 5 or whatever. The whole Drummond is clogging up the lane thing, but like they can make it work. It's not like this is Drummond's first game or something, right? It's I know it's a transition to playoff basketball, but it's not gonna be crazy. I think they'll be just fine. Uh, like I said earlier, CP3 is just not himself at this point, and it's unfortunate he always gets injured in the playoffs, it seems. But I think it's pretty much going to be the easy victory for the most part for LA.
Yeah, I will agree. I say easy victory. I think it'll be a close game, but I think it'll be closer in score than it was really in the game. Like when people look at the final score, like, oh, they only won by like 10 or so. But really, I think if you were to watch the game, you'd see that they had control
Yeah.
the whole time. CP3 is not himself, as you said. And always injured in the playoffs, but without CP3 being himself, I'm not sure Devin Booker and DeAndre Ayton are the duo that's going to take down AD, LeBron, Drummond, Schroeder, all of them. So the Lakers probably will once again put the series in their own hands tonight and casually move into a 2-1 position and be ready to move forward with win this series.
Yep. And then moving on to the last game for today. This game is going on right now. Milwaukee and the Heat. Right now, Milwaukee's up 29-18, about halfway through the second quarter. And it's looking like it's going to be another Bucks victory.
Yeah, so seeing the update there now, it went up by 2 each, 31-20. Milwaukee up. This one will probably be a Milwaukee victory. That's a little closer than last week, but still, Milwaukee seems to be firmly in control tonight. And if the Bucks go up 3-0 tonight, that's kind of scary for the Heat. It's not a possibility that even I, as a Bucks fan, really considered like we'd go up 3-0 on them. But if we do manage to win this game, especially it being Miami, and we go up 3-0, I think that it's a little terrifying for a Heat fan to have this team put you on your back like that, especially after what you did to them last year. But tonight, I think once again I'll take the Bucks, and probably about the same margin. About a 10-point, at least by the way it's going currently.
Yeah, I really think the Heat had to win that first game. I mean, when you got them into overtime, they should have won in regulation, really. But when you got them to that point, you're not expected to beat this team. You got to try to do that at game one. Now, we've seen a lot of teams over the years, they'll lose game one and then immediately come back and, basically destroy the other team, win 4 straight games. I don't know if that would have happened. It's very likely. But yeah, I think the Heat, they got to come back and win this game because I don't see them winning game 4 if they don't.
Yeah, and then just an important note, I believe Bucks player Dante DiVincenzo had some sort of ankle injury early on in the second quarter, and he has not checked back in since. So don't know what exactly happened to him, but hope he is okay.
Yeah, I hope he's okay. Never want to see injuries. So moving on to Friday's games, starting off with the Knicks going down to the ATL to face the Hawks. They're tied at 1-1. What do you think is going to happen in game 3?
Now, if I'm a Knicks player, I've got to stay confident here because Trae Young came in game 1 and showed us up in our own house, trash talked us all of the first 2 games, in our own house like it was his house, and then said, "See you in the A." Really hostile environment. I know that it's going to be tough. Going to be good, but I do think that the Knicks will do something if Julius Randle can get into more of a playoff groove. He just hasn't been regular Julius Randle that we've been seeing recently. I mean, he's contributed in ways that aren't scoring, but I believe that the Knicks need his scoring, and so if he can find his groove and if they can play like, all right, now we're in your house, we're gonna do what you did to us, then that'll be a Knicks win. I think they'll come out 2-1 on the series. I will take the Knicks by like 3 at most.
Yeah, this is one I feel like can go either way. I was about to mention the Knicks crowd being a factor, but heck, I mean, it was a factor for Trae Young going off and winning, and then that was a factor for them winning in game 2. So you can go either way. I think Knicks fans travel pretty well. It's not like it's insanely far from New York to Atlanta, so we might see a lot of Knicks fans there. I'm not gonna insinuate that Atlanta fans won't show up because it's not like Atlanta's been that good in recent memory either. So those fans will probably be excited to see them. But I got confidence that Trae Young is going to have another great game. It's just a matter of, how well does the rest of the team do? Julius Randle, he has to start better than he did in game 2. They did pull out the win, but he has to play like the most improved player. I mean, he is their MVP. So I don't know. I think Trae Young will have a good game regardless, but I think I agree. I think overall the Knicks will come out better. I don't see Derrick Rose putting up 26 again, but I think he'll have another great game. Um, yeah, so I would say the Knicks barely win game 3.
Okay, so we're on the same page there. And now this one should be a little easier to break down here. What do you think is going to happen as the Nets take a trip to Boston for game 3?
Uh, Other than like we said earlier, Kyrie getting yelled at, I think it's going to be pretty easy for the Nets. heck, if they can get one of their guys to play a little bit less minutes to kind of rest them if they want to, if they want to give KD a little bit of time to rest or James, either or, because this is what we're talking about earlier. You can stop KD. I mean, you can't stop KD, but let's just pretend you can stop KD, and then you maybe half stop Kyrie. Joe Harris can still go off, and then of course you got former MVP, one of the best offensive players to ever exist, in James Harden. He'll go for 40. So there's really just not a whole lot that the Celtics can do. I'm not accusing the Celtics of coming in and thinking they can't win, but I think the Celtics know is like they weren't going to come in and just beat the Nets on strength alone. So they would have to somehow will themselves to win, but it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I mean, like we said earlier, you shut maybe a few of them down, and they're going to say, okay, well, I'm not working today, so you take it, and then that person's going to score 40, whether it be Kyrie, KD, Harden. Joe Harris could do it as well if he really was given the chance. So it's just the Boston home crowd is probably going to make Kyrie like a little did or not. He probably expects their hostility, and they're not going to make much of a difference. The Nets are going to come in and probably once again cruise to a game 3 victory, and put the Celtics on their back for preparation for a sweep.
Yep. And then moving on to the last matchup on Friday, the Mavericks and the Clippers. The Mavericks have a 2-0 lead going home, which is something that you usually don't see. Usually a team is down 0-2 when they're going back home, but they're up 2. So I feel like the Mavericks are probably going to be looking to capitalize on that. It's like, hey, let's go ahead and take care of business now, right? They don't want to have to go back to LA to try to win another game or go back home to win another game or go to a game 7. I think they want to finish it now. But I just cannot see the Clippers losing 3 games in a row like that. Like those first two, game 1 is probably a wake up call. Game 2 is like, yo, we need to do as much as we can. Game 3, they have to absolutely win it.
Yeah, I so I kind of want to take the Mavericks in game 3, especially since they're going home and they were already so dominant in the Clippers' house. But it's so hard to say that this Clippers team is going to lose 3 games in a row.
Right.
This is already they're like what, fifth or sixth straight playoff loss if we count last year altogether. And
Yeah.
so it's just to say that they're going to take another one, especially in this kind of situation, the first round against a lower seed. They might not be that much lower, but they were lower. And I don't know. A lot of people said the Clippers kind of sat where they were to end up getting this matchup with the Mavericks, and it has not been favorable for them so far. So as the Mavericks bring them into their house, as ridiculous as it may feel to say, I'm going to say that the Mavericks pull game 3 closer than the other ones, though. But I think they'll get it. They'll surprise the world by putting the Clippers in a 3-0 hole. That's not what I expected at the start of this series, but it seems it could happen.
Man, if the Clippers lose game 3 and then they lose game 4, if they somehow get swept, I think it's going to be 10 times worse than last year because at least, you know, they should have
Kawhi's gone.
lost last year. Yeah, they shouldn't have lost last year, but they didn't. They blew a 3-1 lead. But if they get swept by a team that's lower seeded than them that they supposedly tanked to get to, yeah, like, no, they're the media is going to kill them. Kawhi's probably gone. Paul George is probably either going to get stuck there or he's gone. And I think the Clippers experiment will be over. But with that being said, I do take the Clippers in game 3.
I guess supposedly this could be some kind of elaborate ruse so the Clippers can pull off a 3-1 comeback or a 3-0 comeback and be like, look, we can do it too. But I that seems more just like a joke, and I don't know. The Clippers need this game 3. I think we both definitely agree on that. And if they do get swept by the Mavericks, Kawhi's gone, PG's probably gone, Ty Lue will probably also be gone because I mean you can't bring in a guy and then do way worse than the previous year. So yeah, it's a lot on the line in this and just this game 3 here because you go 3-0, it means a lot. So you don't want to take this game 3 for granted in this situation.
Yeah, I remember last year they pretty much almost could have lost to the Mavericks in the last playoffs. I mean, if Kristaps had been able to play the entire series and was healthy and there wasn't a lot of the extra nonsense going on with chippiness and everything, Mavericks could have easily won that series. So,
Hmm.
2 years in a row that they're almost getting beat by the Mavericks, I think it's going to be a problem because the Clippers should have championship aspirations. If they go up against the Nets, they'll probably lose, but they should at least have conference finals aspirations. At least to get there, and or at least to get to the finals.
Yeah. With a roster like that, finals aspirations should be what you have. Of course, every team wants to make the finals. You have to be realistic. And with a roster like the Clippers have, anything short of we should make the finals is not a good aspiration for them because, I mean, they've got a championship team on paper.
They just got to do it. And they got to play. All right, guys. So last but not least, looking forward to this time next week. On Thursday and Friday, we'll have all 8 Game 6 matchups. However, I'm not particularly sure all of these matchups are going to go 6 games. I think at least 3 of them won't. So, if how many matchups do you think out of the 8 do you think will need Game 6?
So I'll give a quick answer to these. I think Utah and Memphis, they are not going to game 6. I think game 5, as far as that goes. The Clippers and the Mavericks have a chance to go to game 6. We've well discussed this. So I see it as a possibility. Denver and Portland, I see 5. The Lakers and the Suns, I think could easily end up going to 6. The Suns end up playing. The Knicks and the Hawks, I believe, will also be 6 or 7. The way this game 3 is going, I don't think Milwaukee and Miami are going to 6. I think 5 at the most. Brooklyn and Boston and Philly and Washington ain't going anywhere past 4, 5 on like a miracle circumstance.
Yeah, so I'll start from where you ended. Philly and Washington, unless Russ and Bradley Beal pull off some kind of miracle, it's going to be done for. So no Game 6 there. Brooklyn and Boston, that's going to be a wash. 4 games for them. Like you said, based on how Milwaukee and Miami is going right now, they could get to a Game 5, but I don't think it'll go to 6. Um, New York and Atlanta, out of all the Eastern Conference matchups, has the biggest chance to go to Game 6. Even at Game 7, like I said, that's what I want to see. Um, we'll have to see what happens in Friday's game, but I think it could possibly go to a Game 6. So we could be talking about it next week. On the other side, LA and Phoenix, I think it's going to be over in 5. I don't see the Suns getting another game unless Chris Paul, you know, you have to have Chris Paul come back very healthy and Devin Booker will go off. Then you also have to have a bad game by AD because I think the team goes as AD goes. LeBron is obviously the best player, but if LeBron puts up like 30 points, but AD doesn't do much, I don't think they can really win that way. So I do see that going to 5, but no further than that. Denver and Portland should be over in 5. I don't think we'll get a Game 6. I think Denver's going to win the next 3. LA and Dallas could possibly go to a Game 6. If the Clippers win the next 4, then we'll be in the Game 6. If not, then the Clippers might be out of there in 5. Just kind of depends. And then Utah and Memphis, like you said, I think that'll be over. Utah's going to win next 3 games, so that'll be over in 5 there. So, this time next week we'll be talking a lot of round 2 matchups instead of round 1 because I think a lot of these could be over pretty soon before the next episode comes out.
Yeah, I agree, and I think we'll have a lot to talk about, especially as we move into some round 2 matchups with these teams as after they've proven themselves in round 1, and we see kind of what they are this year. Because of course, as we talk about the round 1 matchups, at least last week, we talk about what we think they might be. This week we get to talk about what they are right now as we've seen it, and then next week as we get to some who are ready for round 2, then we will talk about those who have survived the first round and how they did that, and then the other ones, we'll still kind of have to cover them as they enter the late parts of their series.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I feel like the playoffs don't really start till round 2 because that's when you start to get some of those um, upsets that aren't too big of upsets, but you know, the conference finals, you obviously only have two teams at that point. But when you got four teams on each side, things can get kind of tricky. You see some upsets where you don't really expect it. Obviously, LA and Denver last year was probably the one that came to mind first. So, yeah, I think we won't see a whole lot of game sixes in round one. Round two, definitely.
Yeah, we'll have a lot of long series as we go round two and beyond, as we really get to those super good teams that will tire each other out as they go, and they won't just be like a Nets Celtics situation where a team gets to come in and
Yeah.
essentially rest their way to a victory.
Yep. So, with that being said, guys, I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode. And we got some news for you real quick. We will be adding this podcast to Spotify pretty soon. Hopefully, episode 10 will be on Spotify. I'm not sure about episode 9 as of right now, but episode 10 for sure, I want to get it up on Spotify. So if you are a Spotify listener, you can head over to there. You can listen in the background and everything. I know that's a lot of people's choices and preference as far as listening to a podcast. So I completely understand it there. So with that being said, thank you guys for tuning in. This has been T-Bron 31 with Jaboc the Great. Like, comment, subscribe. I'll see y'all later.